How do y'all view delicious people? I'm here to review Innocent Blood. So, for YouTube, I do realize that I guess normally you probably shouldn't go on and slap a word like blood, or in my case, I would like to say blood, uh, within a title of a film on a YouTube thing. But, like, I'm not monetized yet, so, like, I'm throwing caution to the wind. And plus, also, like, if I find an interesting enough movie, I figure I would go on and mention it. So, here is Innocent Blood. So, of course, the main attraction to possibly this film is there is quite a bit of skin in the game, as I like to creatively say here. And so, to me, this movie immediately had me compare this to either Cat People or have me compare it to Vampire in Brooklyn, the Eddie Murphy movie, oddly enough. So we go into this film and we have a woman named Marie who has just woken up for her night to gear up for her finally going on and sucking someone's life out, taking their life. Because, of course, Marie only cares about two things: her meal and somebody to F. And she's all out of F's right now. So, Marie is going and thumbing through the newspaper, finding out there seems to be some uh, crime war, or there seems to be some mob war going on. So, Marie is to realize that this may be the perfect time for her to strike, as it seems that she can just go on and kill a bunch of guys who are all involved in the mob and just make them all look like they're hits. And I'm like, wow, that's actually a really smart idea. And I also like what they end up doing to, like, showcase the Marie slash vampire character. I like how, like, there's so many things that like might come off goofy, but then there's also some like strength things where I'm like, wow, like this is really impressive that they went on and did this or did that. Overall, this movie may come off as like a novel or a noir kind of film, but for me, I just also was to like say that there were some gory moments here too at certain points, and so like I guess that could kind of even it out in some ways. But I thought that this was really interesting. People could go on and have this feel like some like TV show pilot that never went anywhere, but I don't know. At the end of the day, this is Innocent Blood for you. So, with that said, where can you go on and see Innocent Blood? So, Innocent Blood, of course, is to be available on a number of apps just to rent. I think it's like $2.99 right now. But I can also state that you can go onto an app called Doxy, Doxcy, that is currently available in the Google Play Store, and you can watch Innocent Blood for absolutely free. And so yeah, definitely check it out there, so you can go on and watch this movie. There is also to be some scenes where you are to see quite a bit of the female body, let's just say creatively. Uh, so there is that for you as far as interest in this movie really goes. Uh, there is some like goofy scenes that obviously looked like they had to like cut away in this film, like especially when they go on and they try to do the eyes thing. Like you can obviously tell they had to cut it, and then the girl got the eyes, and then when she's like done saying her line, they had to cut away again. So like not all of this movie has like smooth transitions, and at some points like it's a very simple film, because we go on and we have Marie, who is going and killing off all of these mob guys, and it seems that at one point we have Marie, who tries to go on and kill a man that is far too well protected, to the point of Marie, who could not fully go on to suck the life out of one of these characters, which leads this character then turning and becoming the villain for the rest of the story. And then there's this this whole chase kind of thing. But other than that, I think it's about that time to just go into that double five time territory. And I think it's about time to just spoil this film, because I went on and kind of in a roundabout way very much teed up this film. And so with that said, let's go on into that double five time territory, because it's about that time yet again to go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about that time you spoil this movie. So, like I said in the teeing up part of this, we of course have Marie, who is to be waking up from a long night of sleep, kind of pushing her blinds away from her window, and her covers and sheets and whatever that are all over her blinds, or her windows. So, Marie goes on and mentions that she is to only do one things, eat and F, and so she goes on and she needs the perfect cover story for her trying to go on and get a meal, and come to find out she reads the newspaper and it's a crime war going on, so Marie's like, perfect. So we have at this one restaurant, we have a guy that is obviously coming in to get interrogated by a guy named Sal. And so this guy ends up coming in and meeting up with Tony and Joe. And we have this guy who it seems is going to get hurt. He's going to, at some point, need to answer Sal's answer and try to plead for his life. So, we have both Joe and we have both Tony, who are walking so long, because they have, the whole restaurant that they're in is bugged, so they have to go through all these places, all through these steps and all these things, and Tony ends making the joke that they have had to walk so far that they're already in China, so, because we have all of the kitchen staff, who I guess are all Chinese. So, Tony, Joe, and this guy here, who of course is now talking to Sal, sitting next to this table. So, we go on to have Jim Coates' character, Ray, who opens up this box and it's a toaster oven. Sal goes on and is like, well, hey, what do you think this is? And the guy ends up stating, it's like, well, it's obviously a toaster. And so the guy ends up mentioning how, a toaster oven would be more beneficial to cook certain foods, because if you go on and you cook certain foods in a microwave, it just looks limp, like a limp wang. There we go. So everybody starts laughing. So Sal goes on and is at some point to state, well, hey, why is this here? Where did it come from? And this guy is to answer with, well, I don't know. Did it come up? come from some warehouse somewhere? Did it come from some truck somewhere? I don't know. And so Sal is to go on and state that this guy was to have robbed this truck that had this item on it. And so now it seems that Sal is to be very upset to the point of taking this toaster oven and bashing this guy over the head with it because they, of course, are missing out on a product and they're wondering where it went. So this guy is now going on and begging for his life, and Tony is telling Joe that, like, hey, this guy isn't gonna make it out of here, because Joe is kind of like, well, hey, man, like, people probably saw him come in here, and, like, obviously, like, Sal could go on and get arrested for killing this guy. But Tony's like, no, 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 no. Like, if anything, this guy's gonna die here, and we're gonna hide it. So, as this guy is now kind of begging for his life, and Sal whips out this gun, Joe is to try to stop Sal from killing this man. And so Sal, who is now upset with Joe, grabs Joe. It's like, well, hey, like, do you think you can tell me what to do? So Sal goes on and gives the gun to Joe and is to tell him, like, hey, you kill this guy then. You kill him. And Joe's like, hey, I just steal things. I don't kill people. So, like, he's trying to, like, no, 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 no. So Sal just grabs the gun back, shoots this guy, and so they wrap him in plastic, and we have him just kind of disappear. So we have both Joe and we have both Tony, and so while they're walking out, we had Tony who gives Joe this gun and tells him, hey, like, take this gun. At some point, Sal's going to ask you to kill somebody, and you can't tell him no. And Joe's like, well, hey, I just steal things. And Tony's like, it doesn't matter, because it's either you're going to shoot somebody or somebody's going to shoot you. Like, that's what it's going to come down to. So Joe all of a sudden is to see this obvious van that is to look like police officers are kind of listening to conversations. And so Joe is to go on and break the window of this van, realizing that these people have parked too close to this area. And so now Joe is going on and yelling at these guys so that way he can show his worth to Tony, so that way it doesn't make him look like he's gone soft, or that he, of course, is to also be on the side of the cops. So we even have the police guys going on and saying, it's like, why did he do that? It's like, oh, okay, so that kind of tells me right away that who Joe really is. And I'll explain that here in a little bit. So we have Marie that is to start walking into town, and she ends up bumping into Joe. It's very snowy out, and so slipping and falling and slipping and whatever, it could be fairly easy to do. So Joe, who kind of smashes into this girl and is to try to help her out as she is to lose her shoe. And so Joe is to ask Marie, because it seems that every time somebody sees Marie, it seems that they are easily, like, kind of, like, oh, she's so good looking, oh, how can I just get her a drink or like date her and marry her and be with her forever, kind of thing. So Joe is to ask Marie, like, well, like, hey, do you want to go on to get a coffee or a tea or something? And so Marie is to go on and look at Joe's eyes and just be like, no. Because when Marie is to look into Joe's eyes, she realizes that he's a character who, of course, is sad. And so she's like, no, like, this person seems nice. Like, this person, when you look in his eyes, you can tell, you can see his soul. So, no, like, I'm not going to choose him to kill off because he seems like a good person. So, Marie is to go on and not go with Joe anywhere. So, Marie keeps looking on to find another person to try to suck the life out of. So, Marie continues to look, and all of a sudden, we have at one point where Marie is to be walking by this car, and the car ends up almost hitting her, and Marie ends up smacking with the umbrella of this car, and come to find out, Tony ends up pulling out, and or Tony ends up pulling out of his car. And so Tony is to, of course, say to Marie, it's like, well, hey, what are you doing? Like, blah, blah. So all of a sudden, Marie is to then realize, like, you know what? Like, I made a mistake. Like, it's good thing that you had like the reflexes you did, uh, because like, or otherwise I'd be dead. And Tony's like, well, yeah, like you're right. And so Tony's like, well, hey, like, do you want to go somewhere with me? Like, I have like the perfect spot that you can see the view of the town. And so Marie's like, I would like that. And so Marie is going off with Tony because she doesn't like this guy. So Marie and Tony go off to this one spot. Like, it seems to be like a makeout point kind of spot. So we have Marie and we have Tony, and they end up getting uh, some passionate moments within the front seat. And so Tony is to state, it's like, well, like, how about we just go into the back seat so we can get some more motion going on here? And so Marie instead is to consistently like, kind of push Tony's neck consistently to the side so she can kind of kiss him a couple times. But then once Tony asks about the whole going to the back seat thing, Marie realizes that she needs to act fast. So all of a sudden, Marie is to sound like a jaguar or like a cheetah or something. So Marie is going on and she is to have Marie. She is to have these rules. So Marie is to state that she is supposed to drain whoever it is that she's going on with to like completely drain them. But then also, Marie has to have some way to make it look like something other than like a vampire attack, so or an animal attack. So Marie takes out this shotgun that she has in her bag and blammo all over Tony. So Marie ends up leaving, and so the very next morning, someone ended up finding this body in this car. So we have Joe making his way to this crime scene, and is to go on and look in the car and realize that Tony is dead, his friend. And so we have the coroner that is to mention here that this guy, of course, should have on his feet, like these purple spots, stating that his blood had fell to his feet when he died. But it seems that all the blood was taken out of this guy, and so there is no purple marks. So the coroner thought that that was unusual. So Joe goes on to have the U.S. attorney, Sidney, who walks up to him and is to state that, like, hey, you shouldn't be here. If anything, we know about what you did before with the other cops in their van the night before. And so Joe is saying, like, well, yeah, like, they parked too, like they parked too close to the restaurant. So the U.S. attorney and Joe are both bickering back and forth, and so the U.S. attorney is stating that Joe, like, isn't going to be an undercover anymore, and that Joe is like, well, hey, I've been working on this for 3 years, like, I'm going to nail Sal. So we come to find out fairly early in this movie that Joe, of course, is an undercover cop, which immediately when I looked at this guy, I'm like, he doesn't fit in here. And I don't know why that is, but I think that's just a good thing on the actor, to where it looks like this guy does not fit in somehow. And so I think that tells you right away that that guy is going to be an undercover cop. So I was like, oh, okay, all right. So, because I was thinking, I'm like, well, when are they going to, like, shift the character to make him look different? Or have him visually, like, change somehow so he looks more like a cop? So we have Joe that it seems like they're wanting to go on and just putting him in witness protection, but Joe was like, no, like, I think I can still nail Sal. All I need to do is like, get him to talk about him killing somebody, and then boom, like, we'll get him. And this is kind of like an Al Capone kind of situation where it's like, try to get him on something. So Joe ends up going on and is to be in the newspaper next to the U.S. attorney, and really, like, for these two, it's like, shouldn't they have just kind of, like, had this guy kind of run off and, like, not had him take a picture? Because what if somebody might get suspicious? So we then transition, and so Sal is kind of walking out of his place for the night, and Sal is to mention, it's like, well, hey, I knew Joe. Like, I knew he was a rat. I knew he was this. I knew he was that. So Sal is stating that it's like, well, hey, go on and get someone to kill this guy off. So we has Sal that's getting in his car for the night, and all of a sudden Lenny is to have a woman next to him, who it seems that Lenny is going to go on and get this girl on a night out after Lenny drops Sal off. And then Sal is just like, well, wait a minute, Lenny. Like, I'm the head cheese here. I'm the big guy. Like, I'm the leader here. Like I need a woman too. So we have, like, that kind of moment where, like, Lenny's like, back up there, buddy. Like, Sal's gonna go on and get this woman. So Sal starts talking to Marie, and it seems that Marie doesn't go on and take any from this guy, from Sal. And so Sal immediately likes this girl because, like, she has confidence. So Sal and Marie go into this limo, and we have Marie who is asking Sal, it's like, man, you have a lot of company with you. And Sal's like, well, yeah, I usually have, like, the FBI. I have like all of my gang, all of my constituents, so on and so forth. So Sal is to then call for Lenny and is to say for him to like ditch everybody, so that way Marie, Sal, and Lenny can just be by themselves. So we let me pause here for 1 second. All right. I had a spam call, so I kind of figured that I would go on and I would wait till the voicemail came over. So we go on, and so Sal brings Marie into his hideout, his little home away from home, and so we have, of course, Sal, who's kind of adjusting the room, getting it nice and cozy for Marie. So we have Sal, who is kind of hungry, and so he puts out this food hoping that Marie is going to join him in this meal, and of course she's not because she's a vampire. So, come to find out, Sal is to be putting out these mussels. And we all of a sudden have Marie who's like, ugh, like, no, like, I won't eat that. Like, I don't like fish. And coming up with all these excuses. And Sal's like, what, are you vegetarian? Like, hey, this is mussel, so maybe it's just like vegetarian. So we have Marie who just doesn't like the smell of this. And plus, also, there's possibly some garlic that is tied to that also. So Marie runs off into the bathroom and is to open up this window because she's like, oh my god. So Sal joins her into the bathroom and is to just kind of push himself on her. And we, of course, have Sal who's like, hey, like, don't play innocent with me. Like, I know you've been down some dark alleys. Like, you look like a girl that's been through some things, seen some stuff. Wouldn't recommend it. I'm paraphrasing here. But so, we have Sal that continues to push. And so it seems that both Marie and Sal go into this tub. They fall in it. And so Marie, of course, is do the same usual neck thing that she did with Tony. And so we have Marie who goes on and takes a big bite out of Sal. And so we had Sal that is going on and trying to defend himself, trying to grab this gun, fire off a round. If we had Tony, of course, who when he was getting attacked, he just put his hands on top of the hood of the car and he was just banging up against it, which I was like, wait a minute, shouldn't you be trying to defend yourself, not just letting it happen? He's just banging on the hood of the car. What is that supposed to do? I don't know. So Sal goes on and fires a shot. Lenny, of course, to hear this and is to try to break into the door. It's like, I'm trying. So he can't get in. So what he is trying to do is run around to see where Sal is in the home, breaks through this window, and is to fire upon Marie, where she gets shot in the chest. So now Marie realizes that, like, the jig is up. She needs to get the F out of here. So Marie just frickin' runs off, because what else could she do? So Marie runs like a crazy person out of here, and so we again go on to have the police who make their way to this crime, and so now that, come to find out, this is to be tied with Sal, Joe is to realize, like, well, like, I guess my undercover job that I did for 3 years is now wasted. Like, I'm just gonna come in here as a cop because, like, either way, like, my job is done. So Joe comes in there to talk to the coroner, and the coroner is to take the temp of Sal and realize bizarrely that the temperature of this body is going up. and it shouldn't because this guy is obviously dead. So we have Joe who bumps into Lenny, and Lenny's like, "Oh, I knew you were a cop. I knew you were this." Blah, blah, blah. So Joe is to drop his little badge that is to kind of say who he is. So come to find out, Joe is to just kind of look around, is to find out that there's a ladder. Joe climbs up it, looking at the rooftop, just kind of seeing if this girl could possibly be left somewhere around here. We also had Joe, who is to have suspicions that the person who had gone on and killed Sal could possibly be female, because Joe is starting to notice that Marie, every time there is to be a situation that might be with a mob member, Marie is always there. So Joe is kind of making this kind of thought of well, maybe it could be a female, kind of get these guys off guard and then kill them off. So Joe goes onto this rooftop, and we all of a sudden have Marie, who springs out of nowhere. Row, row, row. So Joe gets scared the crap out of, falls over, and so Marie comes flying out, and he's like, "What the fuck? What the was that?" Just when I thought I knew everything. So we have Joe desperately go on and try to chase Marie down. And so he goes into this one location where all of a sudden I think that Marie is flying around, and he's just what? So he's trying to dodge her as she's flying, I guess. That isn't very obvious, but I think when going on and watching The Lost Boys, I'm okay, what is going on here? And you just have to make the clear consensus that that Marie is flying, because what else could she be doing? So Joe follows Marie to this shower slash thrift store. I don't know why there's a shower in a thrift store, but I guess it's there. So we see Marie break into this window, and she starts going into a shower, and then she goes on and grabs all these items in the thrift store as if this is Terminator 1, and she's going to grab a bunch of Nike sneakers and be in a photo booth and do that whole scene from the from either Terminator 1 or Terminator Genesis, because they recreated that scene. If you've not gone on and seen Terminator or Terminator Genesis, then that'll be lost on you, or you probably won't understand what I'm talking about with the whole Michael Biehn thing. I'm gonna we'll move on. So Marie is to, when Joe comes in the thrift store, Marie is just kind of hanging by this one pole, and she slowly but surely drops down, and when Joe is to turn around, Marie is gone. She grabs his coat and she's gone, because these vampires are to move really quickly. Really quickly. When you blink, they're somewhere else. It's that kind of fast. Anyways, so we then, of course, go on to have Sal be taken to not the coroner, but a pathologist. And so as they're bringing in this body, it seems that the body is to all of a sudden burp. And the coroner's assistant is wait a minute, this thing burped. And the pathologist is yeah, I've had dead bodies farting and burping and slurping and whatever, so it's fine. So the coroner's assistant is like, okay, all right. So he walks away. So we have the pathologist. It's like, okay, it's time to go to work. So the pathologist takes this blade and is wanting to dissect Sal. And as the pathologist turns back to the dead body that was in this body bag, we then have Sal, who wakes back up, is like, hey, what are you doing? So Sal starts running out like crazy, like through all these bodies, through all these not so close bodies. So we have Sal that's running off, and we all of a sudden have all these news people that are asking all these detectives and so on and so forth, like, well, hey, like, what news do you have on Sal, and so on and so forth, like all these news people asking. So by the time they're going on and talking about Sal's body, all of a sudden Sal is running across this, and we have the coroner's assistant and the pathologist that are all running behind them, and they're like, oh my god, he must not be dead, he's still alive. I think the coroner ends up doing the report of staying like, well, like, yeah, I guess he's still alive. So we have Sal that runs into this elevator, desperately wanting to get back to him being able to get to his lawyer, Manny Bergman. So we have Sal that goes on and is to grab this car and just drives like wild through through town. So we have both Marie and we have both Joe, who finds out what's going on with Sal, that he's still alive, so on and so forth. So now Joe and Marie, like, Joe has his own car, and we then have Marie that jumps from a high spot right on top of Joe's car, and is to go on and have Joe, who is to like be freaked out about somebody jumping on his car. Joe ends up getting out of the car, and Marie ends up getting into the car, and she ends up breaking the windshield, and so Joe tries to go on and desperately jump on the windshield of his own car as Marie is trying to drive away. Joe slides into the windshield and then gets into the car. And so now Marie is going on and asking Joe, it's like, well, hey, where do we go next? Like, where the heck do we get to where this guy is now? So, and plus also, Marie cannot go on and can't drive anyways because of all the bright lights, and she has light sensitivity. So Marie ends up pulling off to the side, and so both Joe and Marie are talking to one another. And Sal, of course, is to be a cold-blooded killer, but then Joe ends up asking Marie, it's like, well, what are you exactly? Aren't you the same thing? So we have Marie that mentioned that she effed up and like she made a mistake, and hasn't Joe ever gone on and done that also? So like Joe's like, okay, like I'll let this slide. So Joe goes on to try to figure out where the heck Sal's lawyer is, and so he ends up calling for the address. So they go on to Manny's place, and so Sal gets to Manny's place first, and it seems Sal is to start to become hungry. And, of course, with him being a vampire, But Sal has to go on and explain what is going on with him, that he was to have some temperature thing inside his chest that he pulled out. So Sal goes on to see Manny's wife, who is cooking this meal, and Sal ends up grabbing it from her and just starts eating it raw. So the blood, of course, is still on this meat. So Sal continues to just find all this raw meat and he's starting to eat it. And so that brings in all of Sal's uh, like workers, all of his men. So we go on to have Joe and we have Marie that make their way to this spot, and we have Joe that goes in there, and it seems that Sal is to sniff out that Joe is here. So as Joe is kind of looking through this window, we have Sal that ends up grabbing Joe by the neck, choking him out, and Sal wants to immediately kill this guy off, and all of his men are, and Manny specifically, are trying to convince him not to. Manny ends up grabbing this shovel and smacking Sal with it to kind of knock some sense into him. Sal lets Joe go, and then is to take Manny to this basement where we then will have Sal go on and suck the blood off of Manny. And Manny will also go on and become a vampire because he'll be sleeping. And so when Manny's wife ends up going on to find out where Manny is, we have Sal, who is a bloody mess with Manny also. And so Manny's wife is to state, it's like, oh my god, like, he killed my husband. And Sal's like, oh no, he's just sleeping. So Manny's husband is, or Manny's wife. Let's get that right. Manny's wife. Manny's wife is running off to find some detective randomly somewhere, or some police officer to help her try and save her husband. So, come to find out, this is, of course, Detective Dave. And so while Sal is to, of course, go on and get into his car and leave, Marie is to go on and take her car that she stole from Dave, this detective, and trying to chase after him, while Joe, who of course is to get away from these two guys that of course are dragging him around, and he ends up running to this car, jumping into the car, and because what happens is Sal and Sal's two goons all go to try and take a garbage truck to Joe to try to bit by bit crush Joe's body. So when Marie shows up to try to even the odds, that's when Sal and all the guys start running off. So Joe jumps into Marie's car. They have this whole chase. And so this winds up having us realize that daylight is breaking. And we have Marie and Joe who drive off to this motel, and Marie is stating that they need a room. So, because of course it's going to be day soon. So, Joe ends up paying for this room, and it seems that these two go on and do a little bit more than sleeping. As Marie used to tell Joe, it's like, well, yeah, you look really tired. But it seems like they're going to tire themselves out with what they're going to go on and do in this room. So we transition to, of course, Sal, that is to drive as quickly as possible to his own meat packing place or his slaughterhouse. So Sal is going on and talking to Sam Raimi, who is the Roma meat man. So Sal talks to this guy and it's like, well, hey, like where do you have a refrigerator? And so on and so forth. So Sam Raimi's character takes Sal to this room, and so Sal is telling this guy to kill the lights, and then Sal just sleeps next to this like big thing of meat, and he just falls asleep. So we have the Roma Meats man who is calling, of course, all of Sal's men to get them over here because it's like, hey, like this guy's just falling asleep on in the fridge, like just like by one of our meats. He's just falling asleep there, and like he shouldn't be doing this. So all the guys end up getting called over after Sal has gone on and slept. So Sal is to have a new plan. So Sal's new plan is he's going to go on and he's going to make all of his proteges, all the guys that he works with, he's going to make them all vampires. That's his ultimate plan. So Sal goes on and first is to see Lenny, and so Sal is like, well, Lenny, like we're like really good friends, and so Sal goes on and infects Lenny and makes him a vampire. So now we have Sal, who is to tell everybody his plan, and so they end up going into this strip club, and so we have Sal that is kind of feeling more youthful, and besides like his disheveled look from before. So Sal is having all these women being thrown at him, like, oh my god, and Sal's like, yeah. So Sal goes into the back, and we then have Sal that turns around and infects Ray, who is Jim Coates, and like the other guys, all the other guys that Sal works with, he one by one infects them. So to say that now every single one of them who are now vampires with Sal are all part of the family, the new family. So we have Marie and we have Joe, who, of course, have this strip joint owner. My bad. Blah. So we have this owner that goes on and makes this call that Sal is to be here, and so Marie and Joe were to find out about this. So, come to find out, we have one of these detectives, who, of course, is to what is to actually be his name, B. Morales, who is played by Luis Guzman. So, we have both Morales, we have both Dave Filton, and they end up getting the call to go to the strip joint, and we have Dave who ends up getting drained of blood from one of Sal's men, and so we have Morales who is just tied to this chair, and so when Marie and Joe get there, we have Marie who is trying to fend off some of these vampires, as we, of course, have Joe who starts shooting people in the head, start like shooting all the vampires. So, come to find out, I guess that's the way to kill all these vampires off, just shoot them in the head and like it won't grow back or whatever. So, Joe starts shooting some. Marie just starts snapping necks, and so that ends up killing off a good portion of these vampires. Marie, who of course is to have at certain points different colored eyes, as she's to have either red eyes or is to have green eyes, or some of the other characters have yellow, whatever that means. I don't know, it's unusual. So we like there's also certain times where Marie is to also have like kind of an odd brown eye color. It oddly just doesn't make sense. But anyways, so they end up taking all of the guys down quite easily, killing them in all rays of fashion and whatever. So that of course has to leave us to Sal being the only one left. And Sal can't go on and get killed in a normal way, so instead, we have Sal that is running off because he doesn't want to get killed, and all of a sudden he ends up realizing that he's between a car and a bus, and so he ends up getting into this car accident, and so Marie and Joe are shortly behind, and we have to go on and show how quick these vampires are at certain points, but I guess not this one. Because we had Marie who showcases to Joe how quickly she can move by her being on this bed and then having Joe turn around and having her be right there. And we also had at one point where Jacko is calling for Sal, and it's like, hey man, like come to this car, and Sal is already at the car, and now he's waiting for Jacko. So, kind of showcasing like the speed of these characters when they want to be quick. So, but we have Sal who ends up getting hit by this car and this bus simultaneously, but he ends up getting out of this and is to heal up fairly quickly. So Joe and Marie go out there and they see that there is some gas that had leaked out from one of these vehicles from this accident. So Joe takes the light and lights up the gas. And so all of a sudden we see this explosion and we're thinking like, okay, Sal is taken care of. But come to find out, no, Sal is still alive. He's Ash, but like, hey, he's technically taken care of because shortly thereafter that Joe then puts a bullet into Sal's head after Sal has mentioned how he's invincible and that he's gonna have a whole new world order as and so on and so forth, and then Joe kills him off. It was also interesting because Joe wanted Sal alive, but it looks like if Sal cannot go on and be killed fairly easily, then might as well just just kill him off here. We also had Manny, who was to be taken away or hauled away on this ambulance. We had the U.S. agent that was asking like Manny, like, "Hey, do you have a statement?" And Manny says nothing. Manny goes to the hospital and he ends up looking at this nurse and he's like, I'm really interested in this nurse. So when Manny goes on to try and attack this nurse, the nurse opens up this window and we start to see that Manny is to get hit very badly with the sunlight. And so Manny's body starts crumbling like ash and starts falling to pieces and chunks of them starts falling apart. So now that I've covered that death, so now that they went on and now Marie and Joe killed off Sal, now Marie is to finally say that it's like, well, you know what? Like, I'm finally just gonna go on and, like, I'm gonna walk and see a sunset. And Joe is like, well, no, like, I can't have you do that. So Joe instead convinces Marie to just go to another hotel for them to stay for the night, for them to continue to just be together. And so I guess after all, for however long, like, we're gonna have Marie, who is going to be in love with Joe until he probably dies, because I'm sure she's never gonna go on and turn this guy. But that's how the movie just ends, with this kind of romantic thing where it's like, okay, they're gonna be together for however long. So with that said, I think I'm gonna not make this any longer and just get the heck out of here. Let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I forgot about. I'm sure there's little scenes, little bits and pieces here and there, but I don't think I forgot any like main things. So with that said, I'm just gonna try and get out of here so I can go on and hopefully probably try to do one more review today and then go out of my way to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.